They're trying to give me flowers. Geraniums. This guy tried to give me geraniums. Okay, so ready? Vietnam. 3,000 when JFK is assassinated in 1963, November 22nd, 1963, we only had 3,000. And so word has it that he was considering us taking us out of the Vietnam War. Can you fathom? From 64 to 73, after he's dead, we fight the Vietnamese War. So ready? Here's the war in Vietnam. We have 250,000 by 1964. Nope, by 1965. And then 500,000 by 1967. And it's called the birthday draft because the draft was based on your birthday. I'll explain that maybe some other day. But we had the birthday draft. And so 500,000 people were in Vietnam. And then in 1973, we finally withdrew. And what? Just like Korea, we didn't win. We didn't win. Where's Korea divided? Anybody know what it's called?
39.
33. I think it's 33. The 33rd parallel. And then Vietnam doesn't get divided. It was divided before, but it doesn't get divided because we lost. We lost. After all of that time and 58,000 deaths, 58,000 deaths in Vietnam, we leave. So it's called a proxy war because why? We're not really fighting Soviet Union and China, even though we're really fighting Soviet Union and China through the Vietnamese, the North Vietnamese and South Vietnamese. Paulie, can you pay attention, please? Pay attention. You're staring off into space. And then North Korea and South Korea. The North is communist in both situations. Everybody got it? They are called proxy wars. So this sentence is as big as it gets for the Cold War. This is what the Cold War was. Proxy wars, arms race, space race, and the ideologies of communism versus capitalism. Communism versus democracy. Everybody got it? We're going around to countries all over the earth trying to get them to be democratic, and Soviet Union's trying to go all over the earth trying to get them to be communist. Go ahead. So the non-aligned movement are everybody that what? No thank you, no thank you. No thank you, no thank you. We are not interested, we are not interested, we are not interested. So this is where we get those words first world, second world, and third world. We think of first world nations as those that are industrialized, right? Democracies, industrialized nations, Europe, America, first world nations. Second world nations are all the nations that are aligned with the Soviet Union. Everybody got it? Based on communism. They're called second world nations. How many of you know didn't even know there was a second world? Right? That's what they are. And then the third world are actually non-aligned movements. How many of you think of third world nations as actually just impoverished? Right? A lot of them, we consider them impoverished nations, and that's what we usually refer to when we say third world nations now. But at the time, they were nations that were not aligned with democracy, and they were not aligned with the communists. So they were somewhere in between. They're called non-aligned. So it's called the non-aligned movement. 5 principles were mutual respect for each other's territorial integrity and sovereignty, mutual non-aggression, mutual non-interference in domestic affairs, equality and mutual benefit, and peaceful coexistence. How about everybody just play nice? Sounds like we all should have been non-aligned. In 1955, the non-aligned movement with 29 countries and 50% of the world's population condemned colonialism, colonization. Most of them had been what? Colonized and still were. And still were. Go ahead. Okay. Compare the ways in which the U.S. and the Soviet Union sought to maintain influence over the course of the Cold War. Okay. Again, so now what you should know is that there's going to be all over the place. I don't know. Did I hit go? I did. What's going to be happening all over the place is that some places are going to be taken over by communists, and who goes in? Who goes in to try to make it not be that way? We do. And then places taken over that are democratic, and communists try to have some sort of influence. So the Allies failed to agree on a peace treaty with Germany. Go ahead. And the Allies divided Germany into 4 occupation zones. What was it called? What conference? Yalta. Yalta. Divide that up. So here it is. These 3 are divided up, and they're by the Western powers, and this is the Soviet power. And so this is going to be called East Germany, and these three combined are going to be called West Germany. Britain, located in the middle of the Soviet zone, was also divided, Berlin was also divided into 4 occupation zones. So over here, Berlin, in the middle of East Germany, which equals communist Germany. Can you hear me? East Germany's communist. Berlin was also divided. So what's going to happen is that we're going to have a Berlin airlift because the Soviets are going to block access to get into Berlin to bring supplies to all of the western side of Berlin, East Berlin and West Berlin. This is why we're going to have what in the future? The Berlin Wall. But that's not till 1961. This is 1949. And they're going to block 48 and 49. They're going to block access to get into Berlin, and they dismantle railroads. The Soviets, they dismantle railroads. They blow up roads. They don't allow any access into Berlin, thinking that we would just what? That Truman would just say, "Fine, just have Berlin." But Truman said, "Nope, we're going in." So it's called the Berlin Airlift. Has anybody heard of it? The Berlin Airlift, and we fly supplies in. For 11 months, we fly supplies in. My favorite is called the Candy Bomber. The Candy Bomber would waggle his wings, and the kids knew that that was his plane, and they had little parachutes of candy that somebody would throw out. These little parachutes of candy over West Berlin. Can you imagine the kids on East Berlin going, "Wait, are they getting candy? The hell?" So the Candy Bomber, he would waggle his wings, and I feel like it was almost like a year ago right now that he actually just died. The guy that did the Candy Bomber thing. So, closed for repairs, technical difficulties, they close it. Fearing resurgent Germany and angry about reparations, the USSR cut off Western land access to West Berlin. What happens to Berlin happens to Germany. What happens to Germany happens to Europe. Soviet diplomat. Go ahead. So Truman, this action provoked the first Cold War test of wills between the US and USSR. The United States is going to stay in West Berlin, period. The end. Go ahead. So that's it. That's it. We have planes for 11 months. It's called Operation Vittles, bringing supplies and food to West Berlin in the Berlin Airlift. Operation Vittles. Go ahead. Food, supplies, everything they need. Fuel. Go back. 277,000 flights, 2.3 million tons of supplies were flown in 11 months to Berlin. The Berlin Airlift marked a crucial and successful test of containment. Go ahead. In 1949, U.S. and France and Britain created the Federal Republic of Germany, West Germany out of their 3 occupation zones. So West Germany becomes an actual country called West Germany. May I have a tissue, please? Becomes an actual country called West Germany. East Germany is controlled by the Soviets, and West Germany is controlled by the Allies. Go ahead.
You didn't read that.
Oh. The Soviets responded by establishing the German Democratic Republic, aka East Germany. Who knows that they keep doing this democratic thing? What is the China called today? The People's Republic of China. Even though what? It's not a republic. It's communist. So the same thing. The German Democratic Republic. It's not democratic. It's communist. In 1961, now, got it? So we got it. 48-49 is the Berlin Airlift, Operation Vittles. Not until 1961. Please do not put those together. That's a long time later. It's like 12 years later that there's actually a Berlin Wall is finally built. So the same thing, in 1961, the Soviets built a Berlin Wall around West Berlin to keep people from escaping from communism because people kept fleeing to the West. So they built a wall. When's it come down? Mr. Gorbachev? What's the end of that sentence? Mr. Gorbachev? Tear down this wall. Who said it? Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan was president from 1981 to 1989? Is it 89? Oh, January of 89. Got you. I think this is like November. The wall doesn't come down until 89. H.W. Bush is president. And then also the fall of communism, fall of Soviet Union is 1991. Put it down if you don't know. The fall of the Soviet Union, I think it's like 1922 to 1991, the Soviet Union. USSR, I think is like 22 and definitely is over in 91. And just put the name Gorbachev beside 1991. Gorbachev, Gorbachev. Gorbachev. So, the Berlin Wall is 61 to 89, and then the fall of the Soviet Union is 1991. However, even though Reagan is still not president, is no longer president, he gets credit for both of those. For the end of the Cold War is still credited to Reagan. So, where does that say? Oh, anti-fascist wall. Go ahead. Wait. Oh, over 150 people shot and killed trying to go over the wall. Go ahead. Oh, so there's like this big no man's land, right? What do you have to do if you're trying to get up? Get across there. Plus that was like sand or something, so they could tell. They would have it raked all the time, so they could tell if what? If somebody had run across there or anything. There was also a river that people tried to swim across and they were shot and killed. That's the no man's land. And then Kennedy famously went and spoke. Ich bin ein Berliner. Some people say that's something about a jelly donut. Go ahead. But I heard that that's not really true. Go ahead. That supposedly translated into I'm a jelly donut, but I don't know if it's true or not. Jay Way will know. In 1949, the U.S., Britain, France, Belgium, and Luxembourg formed North Atlantic Treaty Organization, a mutual defense organization, and then more and more and more and more people joined. Right now, that is supposedly why why Putin went into Ukraine, is because Ukraine was going to become part of NATO, and so he wanted it to be a buffer state between Western Europe and him. And supposedly that's part of the reason why he invaded currently the Soviet Union Russia invaded Ukraine. You've got to know NATO. Go ahead. The opposite? Oh, it grew over the years and the U.S. was no longer avoiding entangling alliances. NATO is the most important alliance in the history of the world. That's probably still considered that way. And then the Warsaw Pact is the opposite. So they have the Marshall Plan. We have the Marshall Plan. They have what is called Econ. And then they have NATO. We have NATO, and they have the Warsaw Pact, which means if somebody in the Soviet sphere gets in, somebody attacks them, what? Everybody else joins to attack them. Okay, go ahead. And then Southeast Asia Treaty Organization is called SEATO. Get it? Southeast Asia. SEATO is an alliance for Southeast Asia. Go ahead. And then Central Treaty Organization, CENTO, is the center of the world, the Middle Kingdom. Go ahead. So, proxy or limited wars involved one or both superpowers and were limited to conventional conflict in one region. Go ahead. Korea's most famous one is from 1950 to 53. The Korean War represented the first major proxy war of the Cold War. 53,000 Americans were killed. It was so cold, it was like negative 40 degrees in North Korea when they were fighting at one time. And the tank treads would actually freeze to the ground because it was so cold. People froze to death. People got shot and then didn't even bleed out because it froze. Their blood literally froze. It congealed and froze. What you have to know about the Korean War is it's called the Forgotten War. And then famously, what does MacArthur want to do? Did I tell you guys this?
Bomb China.
How bomb?
The whole thing.
Atom bombs. Atom bombs. They want to bomb a perimeter between China and North Korea so that China cannot help North Korea. And MacArthur wants to drop 50 atomic bombs. Can you imagine? 50 atomic bombs. And then the only reason it doesn't happen is because Truman is like, man, you are out of control, and fires MacArthur. And MacArthur, who was a famous general in World War II in the Pacific Theater, famously gives a speech in front of Congress that said, old soldiers fade away. And he did. He faded away, and nobody really ever heard from him again until he died. And then the exact opposite, Eisenhower in the European theater becomes the president of the United States. So the tale of two different people. Go ahead. So North Korea and South Korea along the 38th parallel. What'd you say, 39?
Yeah.
Yeah, we both were wrong. 38th parallel. Korea was divided after World War II between the communists and the democratic South. It was divided. Is or it was? Is. continues to be divided. Who's the ruler of North Korea currently? Kim Jong-un. So ready? Kim, if you remember, in Asia, Kim is what? That's their last name. Can you hear me, please? The first word you hear, Sun Yat-sen, what's the last name? Sun is the last name. Kim is the last name. So Kim Il-sung, after the Korean War was over, Kim Il-sung took power, and then his son Kim Jong-il took power, and then Kim Jong-un. Have we got it? Did I tell you about Kim Jong-un's older brother? Kim Jong-un has an older brother. He's got an older brother. Why would Kim Jong-un be the leader? Because his older brother snuck out of the country and went to Japan to go to Disneyland. He wanted his Mickey ears. He snuck out, the older brother snuck out and went to Disneyland in Japan. And as a result, Kim Jong-il what? Bumped him. Said, that's it. You can't be the ruler of North Korea then. That's it. You're out. So then Kim Jong-un, the younger brother, comes to power. What happened about 5-7 years ago? Kim Jong-un, from what we understand, ordered the assassination of his brother. His brother was assassinated in an airport, and I have to read up on it now that many years have passed. But what happened is that these three girls were supposedly, how it went down, is that they were in wherever, Singapore, I don't remember where he was. They were hired as actresses. They were actresses, and they were told they were going to be on a TV show, and that they just had to go do this prank, like, you know, the prank TV shows, and you're going to prank this guy that gets off the plane. They're going to prank the guy that gets off the plane. So Kim Jong-un is the person that they're supposed to target, and they go up to him, and they were told that they have to put this over his mouth, and that it's going to make him something, it's laughing gas, or it's going to make him something. But instead, it was like some sort of poison. And so the girls that were hired actually had poisoned him, and he died like a half an hour later from this thing. And then they arrested the three girls, but the three girls are like, we're actresses. We think that it was a prank show. We think that it was like they were filming for a prank show. And so he killed his brother. He has orchestrated the murder of his own brother, the one that went to Disneyland. Isn't that crazy? Go ahead.
Restart the video.
Oh,